The Men's World Tour is a collection of over 500 professionals, most of whom only ever work in service of their designated leaders. These domestics are often selfless heroes, rarely acclaimed in public, but absolutely vital to the success of their team. Most of them keep out of the public limelight. Without the big wins, they're not naturally thrust into the spotlight. Some, however, are more well known, such as Lidl-Trek's Tom Skujins, a Latvian rider who has been competing in the World Tour since 2016. One of the most intellectual and thoughtful riders in the peloton, and also he's got a great Christmas tree. While some riders feel uncomfortable talking about worldly issues, Skujins actively embraces it, and we are delighted to be now joined by him. Toms, welcome to Radio Cycling.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the very kind intro as well.
Well, you have got a great Christmas tree. It's not a lie. So I believe you were riding on the same roads as Pete earlier this week. Can you explain why all the French town signs are turned upside down on that ride you were doing?
Yeah, I thought I was seeing double or seeing upside down world, but it turned out that like the week before or days before, the French farmers were protesting. And as a sign of protest, they were turning town signs upside down. I saw some like river names upside down. It was quite funny in the beginning. But yeah, I mean, I like that protest. It's, I mean, better than blocking the roads, which they probably still did. But it's more that's like less affecting people, but it's still at the same time, I mean, turned my head and made me ask questions. So I think the goal was reached.
Toms, I just wanted to start by asking you about the team. Lidl-Trek have made some big signings this season, including Jonathan Milan and obviously Theo Geoghegan-Hart. Just what's your take on the new look team?
Yeah, I mean, we had quite a few guys out of contract. And of course, there's a few I would have preferred they could have stayed. But at the same time, the guys who signed are really good guys of high class, high caliber. And I think that we're in for a new year, new era that we like to call. With Lidl coming on board, obviously there's just more money to spend on riders. But luckily, not just riders, also one of the first things we did for the first time that I did ever was aero testing in a wind tunnel. So, I mean, even though I have my contract already and I'm not going to sign a new contract for next year, it's still, the money still, let's say, trickles down to guys like me, which is nice.
Toms, there's obviously been quite a lot of talk in the last 6-7 weeks about the One Cycling project. I don't know how much you've been following this, how much you're aware of it. If you have been following it, what do you think of it? Do you think that the sport does need overhauling? Do you think this idea of a league where there's no overlapping races, do you think that's good?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely always something that you want to improve in sport, things to change in sport. I mean, sport goes forward with the times, right? We want to be more available to the people. We want to have people understand the sport better, be it more accessible. But in one of the ways that even if we're trying to go forward, one of the big ways I think we went backwards actually recently is we lost GCN Plus. I think that's a huge bummer to all of cycling because those guys really knew how to cover races, and there were so many races that would be accessible in this one place and people would watch it. They had great commentators, they had great analysts and all these things. So that's a real pity as something that we lost. So I think that's a bigger bummer than what might come out of something that might work, might not work. And I mean, yeah.
I mean, one of the topics that one of the things that has been at the as I understand it, at the core of One Cycling has been the growing concerns over safety and the idea that, you know, because there were too many races with not sufficient budget for safety, if there were fewer races with bigger budgets, the races would be safer. Is that something you can buy into?
Yeah, I mean, there's the CPA along with the teams. The UCI is currently working on this Safe R project that we actually are having a few meetings during this week because the riders want to be involved. It should be involved because safety is a big concern. I mean, especially for teams to see their biggest assets go down in crashes and lose them for months at a time is a huge bummer for the teams, a huge money lost down the drain. So the safer we can make the races, the better. Obviously, it is on organizers a lot. It is on the UCI to actually follow their own rules and implement their own rules instead of just put guidelines out there and hope that organizers follow them. It's also obviously on the riders to be a bit smarter, take maybe less risks, because at the end of the day, we have the brakes. We can always brake. Of course, we can misjudge. Everyone wants to go faster and faster, but yeah, it's also obviously on us, I think, as well.
Toms, obviously, there's a lot of you guys in the World Tour peloton. I think Jez mentioned there's over 500 of you. Not all of you can have a voice on the big stage, but is there one area where you think as a collective group, pro cyclists can have a bigger impact? I'm particularly thinking something like climate change. As a group, can you guys speak up more and do something which has an impact?
Like you say, there's so many of us, and I think that everyone has sort of their own issues that they feel more strongly about than others. So I think it's hard to have one voice. In a perfect world, with a CPA, we would have that voice. The world is not perfect. The CPA is anything but. Luckily, we're going that way. I really believe Adam Hansen is doing a great job. I really believe that he is making CPA more, getting the CPA to involve more riders, to understand more riders, to listen to more riders. And I think that, yeah, I mean, I would hope that we can have one voice on climate change. I would love to have one voice on many issues, because I think that there's many issues that humanity in general has kind of one opinion on. But of course, it's hard to get people involved because people have their own troubles. People are worried about their contracts. People are worried about their families. And of course, it's hard to have people care about issues that don't affect them today or tomorrow.
Toms, you've spoken before about the war in Ukraine and its effect on Latvia, your home country. I just wonder, we're coming up towards 2 years since the conflict started. How do you see the situation there now? I mean, I know you're in Andorra and you're a long way from it, but you're obviously following closely what's going on there.
Yeah, it's definitely that's on my mind. And actually, with the season approaching faster and faster, I keep going back. I can't believe it. It's been 2 years. I mean, it's not yet, but it will soon be. It's closer to 2 than 1.5, in theory, almost. So, yeah, it's definitely something that's still on my mind. Something that I think about, if not every day, then every like two out of 3 days for sure. Yeah, because it is such a close one for me. And yeah, I mean, I'm happy to see that there's still support for it. I'm happy to see that people have not totally forgot about it in the 2 years. There is still a lot, like, yeah, my country does for it. There's still a lot, all the Baltics actually do for it. There's still a lot we're fighting for. Nothing has stopped. Of course, you want to see bigger victories from Ukraine. You want to see bigger advances of them taking their land back, which always would encourage more people. But at the same time, yeah, and that's not how it goes. It's not as simple as that.
So, Tom's, just to ask you a last couple of things. You've got your training camp in in Calpe, haven't you, coming up pretty soon in a week or two. What's your schedule? Do you know your spring schedule yet for next year?
I actually don't. We will talk about it a bit more at camp, because we had a meeting already in October with the directors and talked about the calendar, etc. But they were not sure yet about actually which races we're going to do. Obviously, all the big ones, but to see the full picture with the smaller races, etc. And also with the new guys coming on board, I'm in a position where I get thrown around a little bit sometimes, just because it's a good thing and a bad thing, where I'm very versatile and I can do the Ardennes, I can do the cobbles. Yeah, any race I go to, I'm an asset for the team. So they just really needed to put the calendar on paper. They needed to afterwards look at what riders they've hired and which races they're going to go with. I mean, there's obviously easier decisions where, like Tim de Klerk, obviously you send him to the classics, cobbles, that's what he does day in, day out. Of course, he's going to be there. There's, guys that you can make the call a bit easier, but I'm in a position where, I can fill in spots that maybe we're missing. And I will not be surprised if I switch from cobbles a little bit more that I did last few years back to the Ardennes that I did, when I first joined the team.
Is there one race that, you always kind of really target and really look forward to that you actively enjoy racing in?
There's many. That's also an issue for me, is that I just love racing. And I think that's why I'm also good at like so many races, is because I enjoy so many races. And I think if I look in the very first part of the year, probably Amstel is the one I've done most times, and I am hoping to be back there. And that's kind of race, doesn't matter if I do the cobbles or if I do the Ardennes. I think that's a race that's going to be on my calendar. Other than that, for sure, I love Strada, love that race. Exciting, fast, unpredictable, crazy stuff happens. So that's also a race I definitely hope to be on the start line for. But at the same time, if I do Strada, I don't do Paris-Nice, and I've never done Paris-Nice since all my pro career. And I would like to do it one day, but I still want to do Strada.
Well, Tom, it's been a real pleasure speaking to you, and thank you so much for coming on the show.
My pleasure.